And here we are. Welcome back to the Retro Sophomore Podcast, where we never sit out. We're your hosts, Envy and CD. What is going on, CD? What is going on? We had another episode of postseason maneuvers. We got coaching changes. We got transfer portal. That's what we got today. Bowl games are coming up. Don't forget the Richard Sophomore is hosting their own bowl pool. So make sure you follow that link in the description to sign up. It's free, and you get a chance to be on the podcast if you win. So the only way you qualify for that, though, is you got to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Got to subscribe. Numbers are going up, which is awesome. Love to hear you guys are excited about this bowl pool. I think we got about 30 some members in this bowl pool right now, last time I checked. So hopefully that's even more the time this video comes out. So thank you guys so much for that. CD, I mean, got any notes before we get into this thing?
No, it's been again another crazy week. I feel like this weekend, a lot of big time transfer portal visits, recruiting official visits, coaching changes. We'll get into all of that eventually. Don't you worry. If you want any, if we missed anything today and you want us to talk about certain things, certain topics, obviously leave a comment in the video and we'll try to get to it if we can, in the next month or so of just absolute college football craziness.
Yeah, and we can't get to every player, right? We'll get to every coach. We'll get to every head coach. But we can't get to every single player. So if you guys want us to talk about a specific player and maybe their fit in a certain place or maybe rumors and whatnot, what are the news that we're hearing? Uh, let us know in the comments. And of course, as always, the rule is if you like the content, like the video. It's that simple. And of course, subscribe. And if you're entering the pool, it's even more important that you're subscribed because then you can qualify to be on this podcast. So thank you guys so much for all your support recently. CD, are you ready to get in this thing?
Yes, I am.
Let's talk about Kurt Signetti. Winner. Winner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and look, Indiana's a tough job to win at, right? What is it? 3 bowl games that they've been to in this millennium. But that's that's not great. It's a tough Big Ten. I get it. I get it. But for a program like that, I think it's actually understandable to have the expectations a little bit higher than where the program's been at with NIL, with the money that this school actually has. I think it could do some damage to some things, but this could potentially end up being a good hire. So, what are your initial thoughts on this hire?
Yeah, it's I really like it a lot. He was a guy that was a pretty hot topic in the coaching world, right? Like in terms of quality mind, won everywhere he's been, and a lot of people wanted him. And the great part about him is he's an older guy. Not only has he been around, right? He's got a ton of different connections, recruiting wise, coaching wise, et cetera, et cetera. But he's also not looking a guy, he's not a young guy that's looking at Indiana as a stepping stone job. We talked about the reality of Indiana football right now, and especially with the expansion of the Big Ten, it's not getting any better or easier, right, to win there at a consistent basis. Yes, their NIL is getting better football wise. They're committing to it a little bit more. I think Kurt Sonetti, that hire actually helps that. But at the time of the hiring, like some younger hot name coaches would be looking at this as a stepping stone. And I don't see Kirk Sonetti as that type of guy. I think he wants to come here and build a program, establish a winning culture, and make a bowl game, every damn near every year, and eventually, push their way towards college football playoff rankings, top 25, top 20, and then maybe into that top 15, especially top 12 category, if everything clicks there at Indiana. But obviously, Indiana football has not been where it's at. Like it had one fluky year with Tom Allen in 2020, right, with Michael Penix and yada yada. We see what he's doing over at Washington right now. He's a pretty darn good quarterback, but it needed a big drastic change, and I like the Cincinnati hire so far.
Yeah, and look, there might be some people out there. I hope it's not any of our listeners that just look at this as, oh, he was the hot name, right? We'll see how that works because a lot of times there's a hot name, right, where the coach has a good year, right, and you look and you're like, oh, he gets the job, and then things start to kind of fall apart, right? You kind of look at Scott Frost. Is that a good example? Maybe. I don't know. But either way, let me go through Kurt Signetti's resume, right? So you guys know exactly what kind of person you're getting. He was the wide receiver coach for Alabama when Julio Jones was there. He was also the primary recruiter for Mark Ingram. He was also the primary recruiter for Dante Hightower, the class that basically won them the national championship that kickstarted Saban's dynasty. Right.
And a big
You,
time, like setting a standard, like, oh, hey, it's a new coach there with Nick Saban, and we're still going to commit to him because of Kirk and Eddie and the relationships he built with all of them, and then build a dynasty.
yes, correct. Uh, you went to IUP, a team that was 4-10 the previous year before you went there. They went 12-2 and had playoff berth in the next year. Then he goes to Elon, a team that had 6 straight losing seasons. The first year he gets there, NCAA playoffs. Okay. Then he goes to James Madison, and we know what he's done there, right? A team that his first year there, I think the year before they had 7 wins, and then they went like 14-2 with a playoff berth as well. He's 119-35 as a head coach all time. So he wins ball games, right? And I also want to highlight some members on his staff that I think is underrated. Okay. Mike Shanahan is his offensive coordinator. If you did not know that, that was his offensive coordinator at JMU. He's bringing him over to Indiana. And look, Jay Cutler will tell you all about Mike Shanahan. A lot of guys will tell you all about Mike Shanahan. Dude's a great offensive coordinator, right? Uh, Brian Haynes, defense coordinator. We know how good this JMU defense was this year, and now their passing game was, a little suspect back half of the year for sure. But the run defense was easily top 5 in the country, metrically in every way. They produced Jalen Green, who had one of, if not the most sacks in the FBS. This was a well-coached team, right? This is a well-coached team. And sometimes
I want to throw another name in there real quick. Tino Sinceri. If you're a Bama fan or a
yeah.
longtime listener here, Vinny
Yeah.
Sinceri, that's his brother. That is, first of all, Sal Sinceri, fantastic coach and recruiter in his own right. That's the father of Tino and Vinny. Vinny, obviously, Bama legend, right? Hilarious safety for them. Tino Sinceri, a pretty darn good quarterback in his own right. He comes over again with Shanahan and Signetti to be a offense coordinator and QB coach as well on this offensive staff.
Yeah, so there's a lot to like about this hire. And it's really easy to get excited, especially like your program like Indiana, and you haven't had necessarily a ton of success your entire career, or sorry, your entire existence as a football program. But I'm excited. Is that crazy? I'm excited. So, and like you said, Kurt Cignetти, he's 63 years old. He's not going anywhere. I mean, maybe I don't know. Like, I don't know. This feels like kind of a last stop kind of spot. Like you said, it's a great job in the Big Ten. He'll get paid a solid amount of money. I mean, we saw Tom Allen get that buyout. We didn't think that Indiana had that kind of money to pump into their football program, but turns out they do. And I think they get a great hire. So, expectations. Before we get into grades, we always talk about this. What are the expectations before we give out a grade? Because grades are dependent on expectations, right? A B to us, right, is meeting expectations. An A is exceeding expectations. And C is not meeting those expectations. So, what kind of grade do you give? What do you have any thoughts on the expectations, of Indiana before we get into grades?
Well, let me give my short term and then my long term because I think those are different here, and that's important to keep in mind when you're giving a grade here, when you're regrading it back a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, right? And to give a guy time at a place and that when he actually needs it. I know Kirk Snake, when he's been at other stops, they've won pretty much right away, which is awesome. And obviously, if you're Indiana, you would love that as well. But be patient with him. That's what I urge you guys, right? This was not a good football team. This roster was terrible, right?
Yeah.
This was for a couple years now, offensive line, quarterback play. But other than your best quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, young guy going out of there, going to Cincinnati, which we talked about earlier, you lose your best O lineman, you lose Donovan McCulley, probably your only playmaker on offense. You lose Trenton Howland, shout out Minnesota, who just got him in a transfer portal, bruising running back, both starting safeties, a young up and coming corner, right? Your two best defensive linemen. Like this is a brutal rehab for Kirk Cignetти. Now, who knows if they come back? I doubt most of them will. It sounds like some of them are getting pretty strong. Um, you know, interest in other places for sure. But you look at a guy like Kirk Cignetti, he can bring over some people from JMU. Okay, not only at the transfer portal level, but also high school, right? You look at Jaja Boyd, right? You look at Mario Landino, right? Daniel Nakua, right? Three guys that are JMU commits that are officially visited them this weekend, right? And might be coming over with Kirk Signetti. Got some transfers in the D line. Steven Sings, right from Auburn, like another guy that Kirk Signetti looking to flip there in the transfer portal. It could take a while for his culture to set in. I don't think next year it's kind of brutal with the welcoming of um the four new Pac-12 members um in the Big Ten, right? And I'm just pulling up their schedule here real quick here. You got some favorable out of conference games. I'll say that. FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. Those should be three wins there. In year one with Kirk Cinetti, to be honest, it's pretty brutal. It's a pretty tough schedule in terms of trying to make a bowl game. I'll say this, like my short term expectation. Ideally, a good year next year is probably 5-7, 6-6, right? With the way that your roster looks right now, after looking a couple weeks ago, maybe at some promising young guys, and they're all gone. It could take a while. It could take a while. I think eventually you should be at that 7 to 8 win mark. More so like 7-5. And then in your good years, you build up to that 9-3, 10-2 potentially. As we've seen Kirk Cignetti do with less talented teams. So I don't know. That's what I'll go with. That'd be my expectations. Let me know if you think I'm wrong here.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy. I think it's very dependent. Like we've seen Kurt Signetti, what it looks like when the talent gap is not there. When there is no talent gap, Kurt Signetti and his coaching staff elevate their players above that. But when there is a talent gap, and there is a significant talent gap in the Big Ten where he's at, it's going to be hard, right? You might find some wins here or there. I I don't see this as like a bowl team every year, but let's win more. Let's win more than 4 games every year. How about that? Anywhere
Well,
from from 4 to 7 wins, I think is kind of where Indiana's red zone is right now. And you know what? Maybe as NIL starts expanding in this program, maybe it can get even further than that.
I think what you have to do to be successful in the Big Ten, if you are not the top dogs, right? Obviously, your Michigans, your Oregons, Ohio States, et cetera, right? But if you are like that tier three, middle tier three, upper tier four, right? In the Big 12, in the Big Ten, you have to beat teams you can beat. You mentioned the talent gap there. Like there's not a big talent gap between you and Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, Rutgers, all the Big Ten West, minus maybe Wisconsin and Nebraska if they get humming, right? Like those, that's you can compete with all those teams talent wise right now as you're currently constructed. It's got to be winning those games, and that's how you keep your job, and that's how you keep your fans happy. Winning the games you're supposed to win. You steal a couple games here and there from some teams that are a little bit better than you, and then all of a sudden, eventually, you can build your program. Right now, like you mentioned, that's not. It's gonna be tough right now.
Yeah, I don't
Wins are
really
hard to come by for
expect.
Indiana.
I don't expect this Indiana team to go to a bowl game next year. Granted, transfer portal, it's young, right? I don't know what he's doing. His entire staff hasn't shaped out entirely yet, so we'll see what all that goes on there. But to me, it's 4 to 7 wins is the expectation every year. I would if you're scheduling some kind of cupcakes in the out of conference, which I hope Indiana is, like
And
pay
they
these
did.
teams, pay, and they did next year. But can year over year, like you need to pay teams to beat them. You have to, like, you have to do that. You have to keep the fans happy with the wins in the win column. That's what you have to do. So we talked about expectations there. What do I think Kurt Cignetti can do? I'll give it a. Gosh, I've been giving out a lot of A's, but I'll give it a B plus, A minus. I'll give it an A minus because one, I think he's a really good coach. I just think it's tough. I think the expectations there might be higher than what our expectations for this Indiana program are.
The reality of it is, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think he can meet our expectations. I think he can exceed our expectations, but it's definitely not going to happen right away. And does Indiana give him enough time to do that? So those are some factors. So, but I think he absolutely can exceed expectations. So I'll give it an A minus higher, sure.
A minus or B plus? A minus.
I'll stick with A minus. I'll be generous.
Okay. I'm gonna go with that B minus or that B plus. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go with that B plus because you mentioned to be honest, I was a little disappointed that he chose Indiana because I was, and not to say this in any bad way, right? Like I think Cignetti's a really, really good coach. I trust his ability to like evaluate players that they are gettable and realistic for their program, to develop them, and then to come up with a scheme and an offense and a culture that fits and that wins games. The problem is like that only takes you so far when there's a massive talent gap. And like I think he can do it. I think he can get Indiana to be relevant in the Big Ten and not just be a pushover like they have been, unfortunately. Unfortunately, in reality, that's what it's been. And so I'm gonna go B plus because I think he can meet those expectations. I just I wonder, as it's currently constructed, Indiana in the Big Ten right now, can you exceed those expectations and become a really, really good, significantly better program than you are right now,
Yeah,
if that makes
exceeding
sense.
expectations.
But
What
I
do you mean
think
by
the best
exceeding
way to do it at
expectations?
Indiana, it's probably Signetti, right?
Yeah, exceeding expectations is going over 500 in a conference season.
Wait, say that again.
Like exceeding expectations for Indiana would be going over 500 in the conference season. Like going 5-4 in
Oh,
conference. Like that's
oh,
that's exceeding expectations.
that's an incredible year. And to be honest, like you go 5-4, you go 6-3. Like there will be some years where you will have a legit right to be in that 12 team playoff if you're in the Big Ten. Like that's the reality of what it's going to be with all those elite teams playing in there. But yeah, the problem is I think it could take a couple years just because of where it's at right now. But I don't know a better hire. So like I hate to give it a B plus and then say like I don't think there's anyone better to come in here and do it. Um, and you do have to pay a pretty hefty payout to Tom Allen. You did work that down, which is good. But like, are you going to give him all the resources that he needs to be able to win at the level that you want him to win at? I'm talking about recruiting salary or recruiting pool. I'm talking about assistant coaching salaries and pool. I'm talking about NIL funds, different infrastructures, yada yada yada. You're going to be getting huge paychecks. I believe next year it starts in the Big Ten, right? So you have to be able to funnel those back in Indiana football because the reality of the situation is like who knows what the Big Ten's gonna look like in 10 years. And like, yes, Indiana basketball is pretty iconic, but football drives the sport or drives the NCAA and the TV deals. I think we all understand that. Just some value with Indiana basketball for sure. But if your football team is weighing down the rest of the conference and they're looking to add Florida State and Notre Dame and they're trying to stay under 20, like Indiana, like there are some other programs out there in the bottom Big Ten that are fighting to stay alive and to keep themselves in the Big Ten, keeping Big Ten paychecks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, I give it an A minus. CD gives it a B plus. Overall, though, when we say that, that's a good hire, right? Like at
Really
Bama,
good
right? For
hire.
example, if Bama, their next coach, right, and we grade it as a B, right? Meeting expectations is winning national championships, right? So that's what we're talking about here. Like a B, A hire, those are good hires, right? So that I think this is a good hire. This is a good hire. Speaking of good hires for guys that are 63 years old, Willie Fritz going to Houston from Tulane. I thought Willie Fritz might even get a bigger job than the one that he just accepted at Houston. But here's the thing.
Well, real quick, yeah, about that. I don't know if you're about to say this, but let's be careful when we're talking about like we define as big job. Just because Houston was in the AAC for a
Yep,
while, at the American
that's
Athletic
true.
Conference, and they're moving the Big 12, they got smashed this year a bunch of times, does not mean this is a bad job at all. I think this is a really underrated job. And I think Willie Fritz sees the potential in this job. And I think it's well respected in the coaching industry that how good this job actually can be. There's Dana Holgerson left a Power Five West Virginia job to go to Houston back when they were in the American Conference. Like this is not like your average, bottom tier Power Five, upper tier G5 program. No, this is a legit job due to its geographical blueprint, its NIL fundings, its structure, yada yada yada.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about expectations in a little bit, it does change a little bit now that you're in the Big 12, right? Like the expectations do change. But Willie Fritz, I mean, we just got done talking about Kurt Signetti, right? And we talked about impressive resumes. Okay, Willie Fritz is in that same exact boat. All right, so
Yep.
let me just run through his resume right here. He won a national championship at Blaine College, right? Which, if you don't know, it's college in Texas. It's a feeder into Texas A&M. It's I believe actually Cam Newton went there for a year before he went to Florida or before he went to Auburn. Uh, Now, obviously, Willie Fritz coached way back before this was like a feeder into A&M where they had that deal, but uh, heck of a job there. Won two of them at Blinn. Then he went to Central Missouri. He's just no big deal. They're all-time winningest coach, whatever. And then went to Sam Houston State, went back-to-back national championship appearances at Sam Houston State.
Which, by the way, built that foundation into now it's an FBS program now because of what Willie Fritz did there.
Correct, right? And then he goes to Tulane. Well, actually, no, sorry. Then he goes to Georgia Southern, right? Young program. What does he do in his first year? Just wins the Sun Belt. No big deal. Like,
Oh,
yeah. And look, if you look at like is what he coached 3 years at Georgia Southern or whatever, two of them he had bowl game appearances. And look, they've only been like five in the program's history, five bowl games. Now it's a young program, right? It
yeah, and
just started.
because that first year they were in there, they won the chip. The
Yeah,
first year they moved from FCS to FBS was really Fritz there, and they won the Sun Belt. God.
yeah. And then they won their first bowl game the year after, his second year that they were in the Sun Belt. So that's awesome because they weren't eligible for a bowl game first year because it's a dumb rule, whatever. And then of course Tulane, and we know what he's done at Tulane. Just wins the Cotton Bowl. I don't think people realize how big of a deal that is at Tulane. They haven't won like a major bowl game like that since like the 30s. Like literally like the Great Depression was when the last time Tulane won a bowl game like that. The Cotton Bowl. They beat Caleb Williams and USC in the Cotton Bowl. That's insane. To top that off, what they won like one game the year before that. So it is the NCAA record. They went from 1 win to 12 wins. The NCAA record for win year to year win improvement in a single season. That's ridiculous. That record will likely never be broken ever, if you ask me. So that people don't talk about that enough. And then now he's over at Houston, which we talk about all the time as one of those sleeping giants. There's definitely a couple programs out there that are we call sleeping giants, and we don't mean to throw that term around loosely, but geographically, like Houston is a wagon of a market for elite talent. CeeDee Lamb, Houston. Jalen Hurts, Houston. Jalen Milroe, Houston. I mean, Kenyon Green, Houston. I mean, what do we need to go on? Like, there is an absurd amount of talent in the Houston area alone. You can lock down
You
some
could
of
fill a
those.
good, you could fill a damn good recruiting class with just Houston players and be ridiculously happy about it.
Yeah, Ed Oliver. I mean, right there. That was one of those like, hey, you kept a guy around near you, and that guy turned out to be a top 10 draft pick. So, stud. I mean, I think Willie Fritz can do really well here. I think he's a really good coach. He's got ties in the state of Texas. If people were worried about that, because that is kind of a big deal, right? When you go to coach in the state of Texas, like you need to have that relationship with high school coaches. Uh, he has that, right? He coached at Blinn. He coached at Sam Houston State. He's a dog, right? He's been in the Southeast, Southwest his entire life. So uh, that's awesome. And the coaching staff that he brings Slade Nagel from his offensive coordinator, Derek Sherman, wide receiver coach, Gerald Chapman, D-line coach, all from Tulane. They're all working right now to pluck some players from Tulane.
Some
I don't
damn good
know.
players in the transfer portal from Tulane, by the way.
Yeah, there are some really good ones, and chances are he's gonna bring a couple with him. So we'll see who he hires as a defensive coordinator. If anyone has any information on that, or I'm just late to the news, just I guess
The
let us know
defense
in the
coordinator, I
comments.
believe it's the same guy coming over from Tulane, I believe.
Is it really?
That's what I thought. That's what I saw.
Anyways, I don't have a lot to say about those specific coaches, but I mean, there was a formula that they had there at Tulane, and it was working. So I'm a trust Willie Fritz on that. So what are the expectations now for Houston? You know, what were the expectations, and what are the expectations? I think they should be the same, but to some people, expectations change just when a coach gets hired. You know, I mean, why did Dana Holgerson get fired? Right, it is the real reason. Well, they had what was supposed to be an elite defense last year, turned out to be terrible. They barely scraped by and made it to a bowl game with Clayton Tune, Tank Dell, and a solid defensive line and linebacking core last year. And then this year wasn't much better. They lost pretty much all of that talent. Um, including what's his name to Colorado, the running back, uh,
Alton McCaskill.
Alden McCaskill. So yeah, I mean, there were some expectations there, and Dana Holgerson did not meet them. But what were those expectations? In the American, it was winning the American, right? Which, unfortunately for Dana Holgerson, that's what Willie Fritz did that year. So, uh, in the Big 12, in the new Big 12, can you compete for conference titles in this new Big 12 if you're Houston?
Yes, absolutely. And with their like they need to start recruiting better, I'll tell you that. And I think they
Yeah,
will with Fritz and with Wes Fritz coming over from Tulane as well, director of recruiting there. Did a really good job there developing, scouting players that are going to be Power Five stars this year or starters in the NFL. Like that's a really good program there in terms of finding and developing guys. But yeah, that Dana Holgerson, I was a little disappointed that they didn't quite capitalize on their momentum, if you call it, like moving to Big 12. I was hoping that they would do a little bit better job. Obviously, it didn't hurt that he had job security issues, so it's hard to recruit with that. So that set them back. Their 2024 class is awful right now. I believe I'm looking, they have 6 commits right now on 24/7. I mean, that's terrible. And it was bad during the summer. We mentioned that when we were going over Houston's expectations
yeah.
and coaching on the hot seat. Pretty bad. I mean, obviously, Willie Fritz will bring in his influx of talent to the transfer portal and try to band-aid it for a year. He'll get his guys going for the 2025 class when he can really get in there and get a full year with relationships and building a good recruiting class for sure. Corey Platt Jr., right from Tulane, the linebacker, just transferred over from Tulane. And you mentioned other guys coming over potentially, which would be a really big boost to them.
I agree 100%. So, what are my expectations for Houston in this new Big 12? Now, it's going to be different every year. I think you're going to see some fluctuation, especially at the start. But what this program can get to, they can get to a point where they're consistently winning 8, 9, 10 wins a game or 10 wins a season. Is that the expectation right away? No. Do I expect them to make a bowl game next year? That's also a tough question. Now, schedule will be a little bit lighter, the new Big 12, but also at the same time, Arizona State and Arizona are on the up and up. Utah is still a good program. I think in a way, Colorado we could say is on the up and up. I guess they've gotten some transfers there in the offensive line. So you lose two of the top schools, but you also bring in four schools that are, I guess you could say, trending in the right direction for the most part. So it's really interesting. But I think in the Big 12 they can compete in every single game that they play in. So that's the difference.
That's the reality of it. And the thing is, like, when there's not a talent gap, which maybe there will be year one, but I think year two, year three, year four, you get into Willie Fritz's tenure there, and he starts developing players better, and you have depth on the O line, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there will not be a significant coaching edge or talent edge. When we talked about with Kirk Cignetti, where like when Kirk Cignetti has a legit, not no talent advantage either way, like he's gonna win you football games. And I think Willie Fritz fits in that same mold, where like if there's not a ton of talent caps, like his staff, his ability to game plan and a formulated culture that wins, it will work in the Big 12 for sure, especially with the future of a lot of those programs in there and the talent gap there. Their schedule next year, you mentioned, is kind of tough. I'm not going to lie. Their out of conferences, Oklahoma at Oklahoma. Yikes. Right. Obviously, that's an out of conference game now because Oklahoma's moving to the SEC, Houston's staying in the Big 12. But you open with UNLV, right? Barry Odom, year two, right? That's not going to be super, super easy. And then Rice, obviously, in state, Houston, pretty close to you. But yeah, you got some new opponents in there, Arizona and Utah, the two out of conference or the two newcomers that you're playing, and you don't really get a ton of freebies. And like you get BYU and Cincinnati, but you expect both those programs to be better next year. I mean, depends on how Baylor does this offseason. It's another winnable game. But the thing is, you mentioned it, like there's not a ton of freebies to be had in the Big 12 because there is just a very evenly spread talent gap throughout the whole conference, top to bottom, which
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
good, but also like hard in year one where like you're like, okay, we get Vanderbilt this year, okay, we can get a win there, and then but so it's like every point spread is going to be within a touchdown, and it's going to be tough.
Yeah. So can well, one, before we give out grades, do you like Willie Fritz better than Jeff Traylor?
I I think they both would have been really good here. I think Jeff Traylor was kind of the hot topic name just because he had the A&M interest and like that was if you're tied to that job, that's a pretty like it's a pretty significant job and like you're obviously public perception is gonna go up. I think Willie Fritz, I would have been happy with either one if I'm Houston. I think Willie Fritz was probably a better hire. I think this guy's really, really good. You went over his resume. He wins everywhere he's at. He's not looking to stepstone from here to like to another job. Like he's probably gonna settle down. He'll probably enjoy the Houston area for sure. This was a really, really good hire. I don't think that I think Traylor would have been fine here for sure, and probably would have been, probably could have done the same things that Willie Fritz will do here, but I think Fritz was the right guy.
Yeah. For reference, if they were to hire Jeff Traylor, I would have given it a B, like a flat B. I think it can meet expectations. Don't know if he's going to playoffs anytime soon. Don't know how likely he is to win the Big 12, year over year. But Willie Fritz, I think he can do both those things, which is why I give it an A minus. Been dealing a lot of A's out here for these coaching guys, but it really has been a good cycle for a lot of these schools, I think, in terms of fit.
I think there's a ton of like I don't want to call it mid-level, but like almost mid-major programs looking to have like coaching opportunities, and there were a ton of really, really good fits in the G5 level and the FCS level for those spots. And like you've seen them make these hires, and like you mentioned, like it's so really good. I like it. I'm gonna go A minus here as well. I think you saw him exceed expectation everywhere he's been. Like you want to talk about playoffs, like Tulane would have been in the playoffs last year. Had it have been a 12-team playoff, right? Like it's Willie Fritz. And that was
Yeah.
at Tulane with the resources Tulane has. After a year they were 2-10. I get it. The hurricane happened and it totally, uprooted that whole team. And it was like impossible to win football games for them in 2021. But the fact that he held that team together during it and then also like had them rebound and win an incredible amount of games, to me is even more important and to me more impressive to what he did and speaks to the volume of the kind of culture that he can build here and be able to win at Houston with the talent influx that he's going to have at Houston and the resources he'll have available to him in
Oh,
a
yeah.
conference that's super, super winnable. And like for all those teams, and no, that's all it goes for all these teams pretty much in the Big 12. But Willie Fritz, if you want to talk about like coaching in the Big 12, like he's definitely upper half tier for sure, if not upper first quarter tier, like up top 25%, which is where you love to be if you're Houston coming into a new Big 12.
So
To be
what
honest, I
grade
wish
you?
they did it. I wish they did this hire a year ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Like
yeah.
I don't love the call for people's jobs to be had, whatever. But like we talked about Daniel Holgerson being on the hot seat last off season, and then I mean Will Fritz was a hot name too, right? In this coaching search,
I think it
but
worked out.
they got him eventually, which is fine.
So, what grade did you give this?
A minus.
A minus. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I agree. 100%. Let's talk about Brocco Mendenhall going to New Mexico. And we like talking Mountain West football, all right, more than some other shows do. So, uh, yeah, you're gonna have to enjoy it because we enjoy it, right? And what does this mean? Bronco Mendenhall, I think initially people really like the hire, and I think we can go into depth and we can talk about how I like this hire probably even more than your surface level, uh, college football analysts, your surface level college football fans, then they even like him, and they like him a lot. All right. Now, what are the New Mexico Lobos? Like, what does that program look like? Okay. Well, they haven't been to a bowl game in what, like 7 years, right? I mean, right? In this millennium, they have had 15 NFL draft picks. It's not a lot. Okay. And 9 bowl game appearances this millennium, which is more, which is actually 3 times the amount Indiana has had, by the way. We just talked about Indiana, which is pretty funny. But most of those NFL draft picks and most of those bowl game appearances came under one tenure. And that was The Rocky Long tenure. Yup. Rocky freaking Long. Okay. If you remember, okay, like, look, everyone wants to talk about Charlie Strong's 335. He was at South Carolina and they turned that team around, whatever. No. Like, if you want to talk about the inventor of the 335, Rocky Long was right in the forefront in the 90s when the 335 was becoming a thing. Like, he was like the guy, right? He goes to New Mexico, what, in 98, whatever. Guess who was his defensive coordinator that year, helping him implement his 335 defense into the New Mexico program? That's right. It was Bronco friggin' Mendenhall. Okay. Bronco Mendenhall. And so during Rocky Long's tenure, right, we talked about 15 NFL draft picks in this millennium. Rocky Long, during his tenure in this millennium, 10. 10 of those 15, including Brian Urlacher, by the way. You guys forgot about that. So, and then of those 9 bowl games this millennium, 7 of them came during the Rocky Long tenure, right? And then we know Rocky Long went on to go coach San Diego State, and he did a pretty good job there. Uh, but I like Bronco Mendenhall. I like Bronco Mendenhall, right? We know he coached at BYU. He also coached at Virginia. Didn't work out at Virginia. All right. Oh, well. Okay. That does not mean it can't work out west with New Mexico. He did a good job at BYU, I thought. So I like this hire, man. I like this hire a lot. So do you got any thoughts initially on it before we start to dive even more into this?
I think this is fantastic. Not only is he just such his resume is awesome, like it's really, really awesome. He fits so well. Not only is he familiar with New Mexico, right? But he's also super familiar with the Mountain West. Remember him at BYU before they were independent, they were in the Mountain West, right? He's got a couple conference championships in there. Mountain West Coach of the Year in 2006, right? They were 39-9 in the Mountain West with BYU. I get it. A little bit more resources there than you have in New Mexico, but he knows how to win, right? He's tremendous. And also he loves the outdoors. He loves the West Coast. Most of his success and like his coaching career, apart from Virginia, which we'll get into, his most recent stop at Virginia, he was on the West Coast. Right? He's got ties everywhere, recruiting, transfer, coaching, you name it. Like he is awesome. And they're actually paying him pretty darn well. He's the most highest paid coach in New Mexico's history. I think $1.2 million. Pretty nice payday for him and his family. And that's pretty significant if you understand the Mountain West and whatnot. It's awesome. I mean, they have a lot of transfers going out, which is to be expected. But at the same time, like it's not a great football team to begin with. Like how many of those guys are kind of replaceable, if that makes sense. Now you probably don't have the replacements on your roster to begin with. So you're gonna do a lot of overhaul, a lot of churning out, developing these guys, that getting the most out of these players. But I trust Bronco Mendenhall to be able to do that. That makes sense. They've also you talked about we'll get into expectations later on, right? But I'll give you a preview. Like mine's making a bowl game, right? And you talked about that. They made like
Really?
two. They won 2 bowl.
That's the
No, let
expectation?
well, okay. For me, for Bronco Mendenhall, it will be like, well, here's why. He's made 16 of his 17 seasons as a head coach. They've gone to a bowl game. That is incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive. And like, I don't think it's crazy to think that like the Sun Belt had 10 teams going this year or whatever it was, 12 teams, right? And the bowl game, like the Mountain West, if they schedule right and whatnot, obviously the addition of Washington State and Oregon State in your conference schedule does not help you a ton. But at the same time, like you should be around that 5 to 7 range window, right? I think when by the time Bronco Mendenhall gets this thing humming up, like what like you talked about Rocky Long, like this is you can go to a bowl game pretty consistently like they did in those early 2000s. They
Maybe.
went to one.
For expectations, I'll
They went to
say
one 5 out of 6
maybe.
years. 5 out of 6 years they were doing that
With
there
Rocky
with
Long,
Rocky.
it was a different Mountain West for sure. But here's what I'll say. And I know there's gonna be a lot of New Mexico fans out there that are, I'll say, younger New Mexico fans, and we're like, we did the Rocky Long thing, right? Because if you remember, Rocky Long was the defense coordinator at Syracuse this past year. The previous years, 3 years before that, they actually rehired him, right? Danny Gonzalez brought Rocky Long back to New Mexico to be the defense coordinator there to fix that defense. And like we still didn't win games. We still didn't win. It wasn't because of the defense. Like the defense improved year over year. Now it wasn't a top half defense. I get it, right? But it improved year over year since he got there. The 3 years before Rocky Long was at the defensive coordinator spot there, 96th in scoring defense, 114th in scoring defense, 125th in scoring defense. Then when he got there, his first year, 89, immediate improvement, then 86th, and then 61st in the country in scoring defense. And then he leaves, and they plummet to 126th in scoring defense. The worst in the last, 7 or 8 years. Danny Gonzalez gets fired. Enter Brock Mendenhall. So I think Brock Mendenhall's defense can work there. I think it's really going to depend, I don't know, to say a bowl game is the expectation year over year. I think it's difficult given the history of this program, but you should not be winning less than 4 games per year.
Yes. Well,
And New Mexico, when they made those bowl games, it wasn't because they were going 9-3, right? It was because they were going 6-6 and 7-5. I don't think they had maybe 1 8-win season with Rocky Long when he was there. The expectation should not be necessarily every year to make a bowl game, right? It really shouldn't be, which is, I know, I'm sorry, New Mexico fans, that you have to hear this, but look, that's the reality for some Power 5 schools, right? Indiana, that's the reality, right? Mississippi State, and maybe the new SEC, that might be an expectation to not make bowl games. And so I don't know, as a fan, you might get a year or two where Bronco Mendenhall steps up big time and they have a chance to win the Mountain West. And it'd be crazy if he did. I'd say that would be unbelievable. I do think Bronco Mendenhall can exceed expectations, right? My expectations being, 4 to 6 wins every year. I think he can exceed those expectations in a lot of years. So because of fit and because whether or not I think he can exceed expectations, this is the third coach today. I'm going to give an A- to this hire. I really like this hire. So those are my expectations. I'll let you talk about your expectations and what your grade is for this hire.
Yeah. I'll say my expectations here, and it's going to take a while. Okay. And I urge New Mexico fans and New Mexico, more so the administration, to give him some time, right? This is not a good roster right now. It's going to take a couple years for them to be able to go to a bowl game. That's what I think, right? And the reality of your program is that you talk about take the checks, take the losses. You're going to schedule these out of conference opponents to get a big payday, right? Next year, you're going at Arizona, you're going at Auburn. Good luck to you in those games. Obviously, you love to win them. You see what New Mexico State did to Auburn last year. So who knows if that can happen to you guys? But the reality is you're not expecting to win those games, okay? And so you got to go 4 wins, 5 wins in the Mountain West. And to be at the upper half of the Mountain West is pretty tough to do in terms of you have programs with better resources than you, like Boise State, San Diego State, San Jose State's humming right now, Fresno State, Air Force when they're playing well. I throw Utah State in there a little bit. And next year, your schedule is kind of brutal. You play all those guys, right? And Wyoming's got a new coach, but tough to win in Laramie as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna give this an actual A because I think this is a slam dunk hire. If let me tell you, if Tulane or Syracuse, even I would if they hired Bronco Mendenhall, I'd be like, this is awesome. That's a good hire. I would probably give those a B plus, right? Because I believe he could have, met those expectations and maybe every couple years elevating them to another one. I think Bronco Mendenhall, once he gets his home and can consistently exceed these expectations, and not only do you get the benefit of a guy he stays where he is for a while. He didn't get fired from Virginia, kind of got pushed out, but he also kind of left on his own because he retired. And he's like, you know what, I miss football again. I'm gonna go back to it. He loves the Mountain West. He loves the Southwest. He loves the Southwest. And I think if he starts humming here, I don't think he'll be lured by another job to leave. And again, so that's part of it too, where not only is this a 4 year thing, but this is a 15-year thing. He was at BYU for 17 years, having a ton of success, and could have left for multiple jobs in that tenure, and he didn't. Right, so that's why I think the beauty of this hire is he's going to meet him consistently. He's going to exceed him consistently once he gets humming, and then he can also stay and continue to build on what he's doing.
I agree. Now let's get into transfer portal stuff. We talked about our coaches. let's talk about a real, like when I'm talking about real impact player that I think people are not talking about in transfer portal. His name is LT Overton. He originally was a class what was that, class 22 recruit, reclassified to class of 21. Or no, it was the other way around. He was
No,
23
2023. He
recruit,
was 2023.
2023, reclassified that Texas A&M, the number one recruit class in history or whatever, 22 class. He came into college at 17 years old. That's unbelievable. And he was still a 5-star recruit. And look, he was buried on this depth chart by just people who are just bigger and more mature than him, right? This guy's going to be a monster wherever he goes. And it's very clear, okay, based on who is offering him, right? He's taking visits to South Carolina and Alabama. Other schools that have reached out to him, LSU, Ohio State, Texas, Florida, Georgia. That's the level of player that we're getting. He also has a brother, Kyle Overton, right? I think that's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big part of his decision, like whether his brother or not, like can play or not, like on these defensive lines. I think his brother might be able to get playing time at South Carolina. Still, his brother's still a really good player as well. But I think it might benefit. Like I think it would be more fun for these guys. I mean, we're brothers. We played football together. It was a blast, right? Just something different about playing with your brother on the same field. I think South Carolina would be more of a fit for them in that aspect. Whereas like at Bama, even LT might get buried for a year, or even Ohio State. So those are the schools. I think South Carolina is kind of the best fit for him. Do you have any thoughts on that, or more thoughts on LT as a player?
Yeah, I think he's a super good player. I saw him last year. He kind of got thrust in because had some injuries along the D line. He was like, so they brought in what, like 5 or 6 5-star defensive linemen that year, and they had Malik Jackson and they had Fadil Diggs and all these other guys that were like upperclassmen too, that were really talented. And he still got playing time. A lot of times it was injuries, but like he struggled in the run game for sure. But that's what's going to happen in the SEC when they're 17 years old. Not everybody's Braylon Allen, where they can walk in and just be as physically, if not more physically mature than everybody else on the field at 17 years old. Adrian Peterson, Leonard Fournette, guys like that don't really come along. And LT, because he did reclassify, he put himself behind the A ball a little bit, but at the same time, like I still flashed in that athleticism. You see it, rushing the passer, that bend, that twitch is there. And you mentioned there's a reason why they have all these elite programs with an elite history of churning out draft pick after draft pick on the D line, won him badly, and he wants to go there too because he's that good. I think South Carolina would be awesome. That's where I'm kind of, I wouldn't call it rooting for because like I guess I'm unbiased. I'll talk about whatever I think it is. But I think South Carolina would be an awesome fit. Like they've had some success there with some edge players and D line. Most recently, Zach Pickens, right? Yeah, Zach Pickens.
Yep.
Going to
It kind
going to
of
the Bears.
profiles similar to LT Overton. If you think about it, just good potential like pass rusher. Now LT isn't necessarily an interior guy. He can play on the edge. Zach Pickens knows an interior guy, but uh, you know,
Regardless, you see that success, and that's obviously a nice pitch for Beamer and his staff there. Bama and Ohio State come to mind for me, because of those need at edge rushers. You see JTT and Jack Sawyer probably going to the NFL for Ohio State. You have Dallas Turner and Braswell probably going to the NFL as well for Alabama. And that's a guy that could go in there and be a really good player for both those teams for sure and help them compete for national championships. But yeah, you mentioned that Mike Overton, that's a pretty big deal. Like there's a reason they both entered at the same time in the transfer portal. They want to play together. And like no slight to Mike at all, but like finding a spot where both players can play and like actually play and like be developed is awesome. And I think that's that speaks to the character of both those players. Like, hey, we are those brothers that we love each other. We want to play next to each other and we'll go wherever as long as we're together. And I think that's awesome. And I would love to see them both tearing it up at South Carolina or wherever they end up at. But yeah, this is a big loss for A&M, I thought. Because he was a guy that like you knew year one and year two was not gonna he was gonna be playing his best football, right, in year 3, year 4, right, because of his reclassification, which sucks that the A&M put all this effort into him and resources into him, and then he dips in the portal, and they can't really reap the benefits that he will have at these next 2 stops here.
agreed. Let's talk about Chris Mitchell. Now, this graphic I have here has a mystery, but we know where he's going. He's at Notre Dame. He's going to Notre Dame, a team that needs receivers. We talk about, I mean, Great House was pretty good for them, but this is a need. And Chris Mitchell, I think, is really good. All-time single-season receiving yards leader in FIU history, surpassing guys like T.Y. Hilton. Just last year, Tyrese Chambers, Johnny Smith, some pretty good guys at that position. I think Chris Mitchell, I mean, he's not undersized, 6'1", about 180, give or take. I think he's a good, really good talent, and I think Notre Dame knew they wanted him early, and they got him. So good for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think this is an awesome fit with Riley Leonard. To me, I think he's probably going to be an outside receiver, pretty good deep ball route runner. He's still kind of working on his, full route tree, which I think would have helped going to Notre Dame, getting maybe a little bit better coaching, and being able to pair with a guy like Riley Leonard, I think is probably super enticing for him. And also, like you mentioned, that wide receiver room for Notre Dame completely revamped, right? You had a bunch of freshmen and true freshmen playing. You had Chris Tyree, some other players, some good tight ends, all gone. So there's a lot of catches to be had and touches in this offense. And I think that's partially what drew Chris Mitchell to Notre Dame. Highly coveted guy, right? He balled out in his best four games probably this year was Arkansas, Liberty, Jack State, New Mexico State. And those are probably the four best teams he played. And even though his team wasn't really competing great in those games, he was still, giving his best and competing at a pretty high level against good players. Um, very, very exciting guy with the ball in his hands. I know Notre Dame staff and fan base was really excited to get a guy like him early in the cycle to pair with Riley Leonard, I mentioned earlier, is big time. It's really, really big time for them. I like to see what they can continue to do in the transfer portal or in the transfer portal with their pass catchers and whatnot. But this is a big win for them and that staff. And I think Mitchell will reap the benefits of it, and we'll see hear his name called in the NFL draft.
Yeah, absolutely. So good pickup for Notre Dame. Do you think they go after some more receivers in the portal as well?
For sure. I mean, I know they're not done. I think they had three guys transfer out, 3 to 4 guys transfer out, including the tight end stays. Holden stays. By the way, he didn't stay. Holden stays his last name. So they're definitely going to need some guys in there, and it's also like I don't know how many years of eligibility Chris Mitchell has. I think he might have 2. Yeah, he technically has.
He's
No, yeah,
he's got 2 years left, right?
yeah. Maybe 2 years to play one, regardless. But so not only do you have Riley Leonard, right? You could eventually they got a big time quarterback commit coming in as well this year that you can play with him the year after.
CJ
So
Carr,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So Mitchell, I think this is a really good move for him, and I'm sure he would love some competition on the outside for him as well, but also like just so he's not the focal point of all the other defenses and to be able to have some other options there to throw the ball to if you're Notre Dame and Chris Mitchell. Would you look for other people for sure?
Yeah, I'll look for other people for sure. I think they got some decent guys at the. I mean, they got some young talent on that team. I just think more the merrier. I mean, you see, there's so many receivers in the portal, so many gems. Like, just get someone, to get someone young, right? Bring in some guys that you think you can develop. What are your
We
thoughts?
just we just missed it. Bo Collins, right? Just as we were recording, he just
Oh, did you
transferred
really?
from Clemson to Notre Dame. Yeah.
Oh well, what do you know? Hey, just exactly what we said, right? Although Bo Collins, he might only have like 1 year of eligibility left, maybe two, from Clemson. But he's a good player. He's got the physical traits. Might not be a number one guy, but hey, there you go,
I,
Notre Dame. Stay active in
I
the transfer portal.
he's actually a really nice pairing to Mitchell. Mitchell, maybe you're more run after catch type guy, get the ball in space, but Bo Collins a little bit more physical. You got to go win some one-on-one balls. That's a really nice pairing for both those guys. Couple, on the coast, like they're doing the work. Florida International, Duke, Notre Dame. I'm sorry,
Clemson.
Clemson. Now, I don't think Riley Leonard's official to Notre Dame. I say that like he is. Um, but it's pretty well
I think
known that
I
he's going
think
to end
he
up there.
this video is gonna be posted Monday, December, what is that, 11th? Monday, December 11th. the rumor is that he will commit by Monday. So by the time you're watching this video, he might have already committed to Notre Dame. So we'll see about that. Yeah, Mike McIntyre over at FIU. You're losing a heck of a player, and that's just the reality when you're FIU. That's just reality. I mean, a team that's been to like what 5 bowl games in its entire existence.
The portal
That
giveth and the portal taketh. The thing
yeah,
is like
it take it a lot from a program like FIU. It took Tyrese Chambers last year. It took Chris Mitchell this year.
but
So I
also
mean,
if you're Florida International, which is in Miami, which is a recruiting hotbed for a ton of talent, right? You're not going to get those 5 stars, 4 stars out of high school. But if you're a guy that wasn't happy where they were beforehand and they want to come home and play at a school where their parents can watch them, FIU is a perfect spot for you. And schools in Florida, schools in Alabama, Georgia, Texas, like that's also a way to look at the portal. Like, hey, we can get some guys that we would not have a chance to get out of high school, and we can steal them for a year or two.
yeah. Let's talk about London Humphreys. We already talked about Will Shepherd. Why are we talking about London Humphreys? Well, I mean, the rumor is Georgia that he's probably going to end up there. I mean, who knows? By the time this video comes out, he might already be committed there. Yeah, he's just an explosive player with very good size, 6'3", 190. And if you look at his box score, it's not like the most impressive thing ever. But if you watch him, man, like he's explosive after the catch, and he's got the size, and he's got the traits. He's an athlete. He was a track star in high school. I really like him as a
Well,
player. There's a reason why he's so highly rated and so highly sought after.
what's interesting about that is yes, the stats aren't there, but you mentioned the athleticism is what everyone's drawn to. Like, yes, his track times are crazy good. He ran a 10-3 at 6'3" in high school, right? But he was actually a baseball player at the same time. Like he ran that mark after coming from a baseball game and showing up and running that. Like he's a freak of nature athlete. How does this guy slip through the cracks and end up at Vanderbilt? Who knows? If I was him, to be honest, I would stay there for 2 more years. I'd ball out. And if the NFL is calling your name, you go there. If not, you have a Vanderbilt degree and you can go transfer somebody somewhere else. But I think he talked about it. He wants to be developed at an elite level because he has the size, speed, weight, athleticism that that scouts just dream and drool over.
Yeah, and Kentucky's another school that I believe is interested in him. Of course, there's more schools than that, right? But the key rumor he did visit Athens, I believe. The rumor is that he's going to be at Georgia. So I guess it's not good to necessarily counter chickens before they hatch. But what kind of what kind of production do you see London Humphreys adding to this Georgia offense, or what does he add? What does he add to that offense?
Um, if Lad McConkey ends up in the NFL, like he's an elite run out the catch kind of guy, right? And you're obviously losing Brock Bowers, another run out of the catch guy. He's a guy that for 1 year, for year two, right? His second year in college, you're probably gonna have to scheme open stuff for him, and that'll be up to Mike Bobo and staff to do that. Give him the ball in space and let him, run away from guys, which he did against Georgia, right? You saw that they went up seven
Yeah,
nothing. That was all over Twitter. It was London Humphreys, burning Georgia for 45-yard touchdown or whatever it was. There's some talent in that room though, for sure. Arian Smith, the guy that's waited his turn. They got some young guys in there. Rara Thomas, Dominic Lovett, Marcus Rosemy, Jack Sane, I believe, also has eligibility. Um, it's not going to be an easy way, but I think he wants that competition, which he talked about in where he wants to go. He wants to be developed at a pretty elite rate, and Georgia's done that pretty well. Obviously, haven't had the draft picks to do that, but I would count A.D. Mitchell as development there with Georgia. Lad McConkey, they developed him. Brock Bowers, and among others as well. Marcus Roseby Jackson's going to be an NFL guy. Yeah, I think that's a really good spot for him to go to for sure. And you're also competing with elite corners every day in practice, which is if more beneficial, if not as beneficial, or if not more beneficial than playing guys in the SEC on Saturdays in the fall.
so now imagine this, CD. Your name is Clark Lee, and you lose AJ Swan, you lose Ken Seals, You lose Will Shepherd. You lose London Humphreys. And the year before that, you lost Ray Davis. What is going through your head right now?
It's frustrating because first of all, they had a down season, right? They were what, 2-10, 18 players that popped in the portal. And that's kind of the reality of Vanderbilt. Like if you have a guy now, the confusing part to me, which if you're Clark Lee, you have to lean into, is keeping guys as underclassmen. Like let them graduate. Like that's got to be your key because like you can't sell NIL, you can't sell success on the field, and really NFL players in general. I mean, you had some guys go, but not as much as anybody else you're going to be recruiting against. It's got to be that Vanderbilt degree, which is huge, and it's obviously a big deal, and it's tough. It's I wouldn't say doom and gloom, but at the same time, like it's hard. It's got to be frustrating because you not only do you see some of your best players leaving, but you also like you have a certain type of recruit and athlete, and more so student that you have to recruit, and obviously that limits some of your prospects you can go after and recruitment and that stuff too, which just makes it all that more harder to replace a guy like London Humphreys and Will Shepherd.
Yeah, but it also, I there's still a chance that they can also just lean into like the portal more. Like that might have to be what Vanderbilt just is. Lean into the portal because it's a little bit more lenient, I believe. If you're transferring from another college and is your high school recruit getting into Vanderbilt.
Especially grad transfers too. That's what it's
Yeah,
got to be. Is those 1 year guys you go to Ivies,
rentals.
you get a bunch of 24, 23-year-old men and you play football with those guys and you see what happens. I do think the other thing about this is you're losing London Humphreys, you're losing Will Shepherd, but it's also like Clark Lee and his athletic directors can go to his boosters and be like, we can't compete. We don't have the NIL. And they've seen an uptick in NIL this offseason, which a lot of teams have, sure, but it's helping, I guess. Maybe not this class, but in future classes for sure. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Well, yeah. How do you do that? But real quick, I want to hear your thoughts on Humphreys at Georgia, right? Or wherever he would end up being. Like, you think he's as good as like he's a top 10 transfer in most places. And part of that is because he has 3 years of eligibility, but most of that's because of his talent and his athleticism and his, overall football IQ and whatnot. That's still to be tapped into.
Yeah, like you said, you said you don't know if he fits in right away. I think he does. That's the thing. I think they've seen enough of this kid. I mean, we'll see how he competes in practice, but he'd been competing in practice against DBs that he dusted on Georgia. Like, so I don't know. I think he's got the athleticism. I think he's got the speed. Uh, just a good athlete. I'm rooting for this guy. Obviously, I'm rooting for London, of course. I think he can fit in right away, especially if Lad goes to the NFL. I think that they could
And
use a guy like him for sure. Now, it's not going to be like he's not going to have the 1,000-yard season likely. Like, guys, that's just not what the Georgia receiving room is, or really has been the last couple years. But that doesn't mean these guys can't get drafted, or uh, in AD Mitchell's case, right, going to Texas and being a star there. I mean, he can do a lot of good for Georgia. I think he can do a lot of good for Georgia.
well, and with Carson Beck more so likely coming back, he throws a good ball. I think that helps with London Humphrey's decision. Be like, I can catch balls from this guy, and be like, okay, yeah, I can benefit from that for sure.
If I can catch balls from Ken Seals, I can catch balls from Carson Beck.
Oh, come on. And Seals was mentioned twice in this episode. Come on.
Vanderbilt legend. Vanderbilt legend.
Vandy legend.
Yeah. I'm real quick. Like, I think AJ Swan isn't terrible. I know he's like he's gonna throw your 2 interceptions a game or whatever that is, but like you have to do that. Like, what else is he supposed to do? So like fans calling for Ken Seals, I think is crazy because you're not gonna win football games with Ken Seals. But
Well,
anyways,
Swan's a young guy too, and also like I think the frustrating part is like you have two guys on your receiving core that are going to be high power five guys that are pretty damn good and will end up in the
Yeah,
NFL one day. Real quick with London though in Georgia, like I don't think this can be understated, right? You mentioned real quick, I froze up. All right, there I'm back. Like you talked about with Lad McConkey and Brock Powers, if those guys are healthy, are they the difference in the game for Bama against Bama in the SEC championship game? Like a guy like Leonard Humphreys, he comes in next year, like he could be the difference in an outcome in an SEC championship game, in a big time, you know, in season regular season SEC game, or in the playoff game when it comes down to it for Georgia. So like this is a massive get for whoever he ends up at, but it's all likelihood for Georgia. Like it's a big time get.
let's talk about Trevor Etienne. A lot of people's number one running back in the portal. Uh, well, let's talk about it. He's really good. He's a younger brother of Travis Etienne. He's very good, and to prove that he's very good, he's there's a report from Mark Long that from the Associated Press that he's already down to his top three, and I'll give you his top three. All right, Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. If that tells you anything about the type of player that we're dealing with, he's explosive. He's a good runner. He's not the biggest guy. Neither was Travis. Uh, but he's got that burst, which I think is very, very underappreciated at the running back position. You know, we would talk about big bruisers, right, and good running backs, but NFL success directly correlates to like explosive run rate, right? You're looking at good guys like Devon Achane, right, and how he's a stud already early. Travis Etienne, Tony Pollard was really successful earlier because he had a high explosive run rate in college. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think he's a really good player. Do you have any preferences on where he goes or any thoughts on Trevor Etienne as a player?
It's a big loss for Georgia, I think.
Florida?
I'm sorry, yeah, Florida. My mind's on Georgia because we just did Leonard Humphreys, and to be honest, from what I'm seeing, he sounds like he's a Georgia lean right now. You mentioned those other schools, and obviously he would thrive there as well. He mentioned he wanted to be, or the rumor was he didn't want to really split carries, right? Like he was doing the past couple of years with Montreal Johnson there. But I think that helps him in the long term. Like your longevity in the running back position, like number of carries you have in college, it's hard to go and then get another 300, 400 more carries a year in the NFL. So I don't know. If I'm him, I would have stayed right where I was, or I would go get some NIL at Georgia or Ohio State with Trevon Henderson coming back, or Bama with all those stables of running backs they have. I think it helps if you have multiple running backs, and you can learn from those guys and also save your body for the NFL. But I love his game. I love his game. I thought Florida didn't use him enough. I like Montreal Johnson. I do. But I thought every time they gave the ball to Montreal Johnson, it was taking the ball out of Etienne's hands. And he's so good. Low center of gravity, you mentioned it. Very explosive guy. I love his vision, his cut, his balance is just incredible. I love like when I look at like running backs, I love when they carry the ball. He's right up there with a lot of those elite players in the NFL for sure.
Yeah, and it's weird to look at, running back when you talk about splitting carries like that and trying to optimize your lifespan in the NFL. It is weird though because it's hard to get that second contract as a running back, right? So if you can optimize your collegiate play, right, and get drafted as high as possible,
Rookie
that
deal.
first contract, depending on where you go, might be the biggest contract that you get, right? And also if you enter in the portal, right, and you can maximize your NIL, like I think it helps a lot of running backs, I think, in that aspect. But we'll see. Yeah, I think he's probably the day one starter wherever he goes. Like at Ohio State, I don't think Henderson hasn't said if he's coming back, right? Like he hasn't officially said it.
I thought that was let me look it up. I thought that was the rumor.
Yeah, I think it's a rumor, but I don't think he's officially said that yet. I think he'd be a really good fit at Alabama, right? And we saw what they did with Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he would split more carries if he was at Georgia than he would at Alabama, if that's crazy to think.
Yep.
Because I think he would start, he'd be the three down back probably, and I think Roydell would maybe come in, like for shifts, quote unquote. I mean, Jam Miller's a pretty good running back too, but um, I still think Trevor Etienne would get the majority. He wouldn't be the cowbell. He never will be a cowbell in his career, and he doesn't have to be because that actually, if you're going to maximize Trevor Etienne, it is just giving him the ball in space because he is electric in space. Electric in space. So, but yeah, I think any of these places would be pretty solid for him. I mean, all those offensive lines are going to be really good next year. It is nice he'll be running behind a better offensive line for sure, especially if he goes like Georgia. Actually, Alabama's offensive line is going to be pretty nasty next year too. And Ohio State's to some degree, probably not on the level as Alabama and Georgia, but we'll see.
The reality of some of these high profile transfers, which ETN, but don't make no mistakes about it. He's in one of those. Like wherever you go, you're gonna be probably in a pretty good position to succeed at. And so wherever he goes, I think he'll be fine. Henderson, it sounds like he's coming back. You mentioned where George just splitting carries. People forget about Branson Robinson, right? Like he's a guy they're super, super high on. Now we'll see how he returns from injury. He's been out all year, patella tendon injury. He gets some turf toe as well. Like or in spring, but they had big patella tendon injury in August. And so like those guys, like it's gonna be hard to keep him off the field and ETN as well. So like it's gonna be a crowded running back room kind of wherever he goes. But you saw that with like Bama when Gibbs transferred in. There was a lot of good running backs in that room, and he just got most of the carries, and like he was awesome. And obviously you saw that in the NFL what he's doing right now. Proves that point. But yeah, I like him anywhere he ends up at for sure.
Let's talk about Andrew Makuba. Number one safety in a lot of the transfer portal rankings from Clemson. This guy was a stud as a freshman, stud as a sophomore. Now he's transferring there out of Clemson, along with Toriano Price. Makes that DB room a little bit thin. But here's the rumors, right? I know Brett Venables has been pushing hard to get Makuba uh, at Oklahoma. I know Texas has been pushing really hard. He's originally from Texas. He was recruited hard by Texas. That was a win for Clemson over Texas when he was being recruited in high school. I know Oregon's reached out to him, USC's reached out to him, and I believe Ole Miss is also for some reason in the picture. I don't anticipate him going to Ole Miss necessarily, but that would be I mean, Ole Miss has already landed number one linebacker in the portal and in Christopher Paul. I mean, a lot of people's number one linebacker in the portal as of right now, I guess, is Chris Paul. But I don't know. What do you think about Andrew as a player?
I think he's a really good guy. He was a multi-sport athlete back in high school. He transited to the NFL super well. He was pretty versatile, I thought, in that back end there. He played with a lot of other good players as well, right? And it's a good front seven in front of him, which helped. But yeah, I think there's a reason why a lot of those names you listed are pretty well respected in the defensive back community and are pretty defense back needed. And so he can go and step in right away. I'm curious why he would leave a place like Clemson because he's a year away from, making a big NFL money, and you've seen the success of Clemson DBs in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't I don't want to speculate on what happened. Maybe NIL is involved, maybe frustration with Dabo Sweeney's involved. I don't want to speculate anything or start rumors or whatever, but it did surprise me that like Toronto Pride I get because he didn't get quite the playing time he wanted, even though he probably would with Nate Wiggins going to the NFL probably next year or this offseason. But Bakuba was just a stud and he was thriving. And like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The grass ain't always greener. But in this case, I think he's a good enough player where he can kind of fit wherever he goes. But you also saw like a guy, we just talked about him, Jalen Catalon, right, from Arkansas. And he I probably lost a lot of money going over to Texas. Now, I'm sure it helped, but like, if he stayed at Arkansas and stayed healthy, he would have been a first round pick or a second round pick this year with Arkansas. And so it's just interesting. I'm not, faulting the guy for transferring and looking at his options for sure, but I think it's just interesting. It kind of caught me off guard when that happened.
Yeah. Oklahoma, I think, would be a weird spot because Billy Bowman is still coming back. for Oklahoma. Texas,
And they got the
Jalen Catalon.
freshman.
At Texas, Jalen Catalon couldn't find playing time in that safety room. So these are some really, really interesting names. Andrew's a stud. All right. I believe personally that he will get valuable playing time wherever he goes, and he will be very, very good. But like you said, yeah, it is weird to see his name in the portal. But I kind of lean Texas. I think he's gonna go to Texas. I
Yeah.
think
You said,
that's
yeah. I mean, he's from Austin, so like
yeah.
he's from LBJ. That it's yeah. It sounds pretty, slam dunk. But what's interesting, I wonder why he didn't test the NFL. I don't know the market for him there exactly. I don't know what his response was, but like you mentioned, the transfer board, you can still under the NFL. So we'll see what his grade comes back as. But yeah, I tend to agree. Texas kind of makes a lot of sense for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Texas is kind of the spot. You're right though. It is weird that he didn't test the transfer or the NFL, but like also too like as a safety, right? We know it's not as valuable a position, right, as some other positions, and you're not going to get drafted as high or paid as much. Is this purely NIL? My thought initially from this is like if you're going to transport, even though he's in a good spot at Clemson where he plays well and he's playing a lot and he gets good looks and a good opportunity, and he's not going to the NFL, it has to be, in my opinion, someone's contacting his family saying that he can get a bag somewhere. So I don't know. But again, I don't like starting rumors here. But that's my initial reaction from this. But yeah, this guy's a good player. I expect him to go to Texas. I could also see him in Oklahoma. I could also see him in Oregon. So, and rumor has it USC's got pretty decent NIL bag as well to hand out. So, wouldn't be insanely surprised if he found his way over to Lincoln Riley's USC.
Yeah, which and sounds like they're making some moves on the defensive side of the ball as well. Obviously, they did the defense coordinator. I'm talking about personnel wise, like player personnel wise. They're definitely trying to overhaul that um pretty quickly for Lincoln Riley there.
Let's talk about Brock Vandegrift transferring out of Georgia, former 5-star quarterback, transferring to none other than Kentucky. Yep, Kentucky. So is this a good fit? To be honest, I don't know. We haven't seen a ton of Brock Vandegrift play, but I think he can win games at Kentucky for sure. I think this is a great get for Kentucky. I think it's a great get. Uh, I don't know what other quarterbacks Kentucky was in the market for in the transfer portal, but he's pretty good. You have any thoughts on this transfer?
Yeah, I like it a lot for both parties. And now he is one of the top graded quarterbacks in the portal, which I think is really interesting because of how little we've actually seen him play at Georgia. Now I think it helps that like, yeah, he's inexperienced in game wise, but he's also like he's been there for a long, long time. You saw Stetson Bennett work, he saw Carson Beck work. He's got great coaching there with some offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches that are really well respected at Georgia. Obviously, former 5-star, high 4-star guy, um, physical tools, physical specimen, great arm, good athlete, enough. I think the comp for him, I think, which drew him to Kentucky, Will Levis. Like they've similar career paths in terms of, their backup for a pretty good quarterback, especially in college, and then they transferred to Kentucky, and Will Levis we saw was being a draft pick in day two there, and Vinegar I'm sure would love to be in the NFL as well from Kentucky. This is a third straight year that or basically third straight year of Kentucky having a transfer quarterback and a pretty notable one. And I think that's super impressive for the resources they have and there's the overall quality of job that is to be a quarterback there. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. You mentioned it was a good get for Kentucky. It was a great get in terms of while all the blue bloods were fighting out over Dante Moore, Dylan Gabriel, et cetera, yet Cam Ward, all these other guys at the top. Like in that tier two was Brock Vandegrift, and Kentucky snatched him up before the Blue Bloods could get back to him and circle back to him if they miss out on one of their top guys, which is huge for Kentucky, like you mentioned.
Yeah, he's got 2 years of eligibility left, which I like a lot. You compared to Will Levis, I don't think he has the necessary arm talent that Will Levis does, but he could be a really, really good quarterback for Kentucky. And Kentucky, they're really active in the transfer portal right now. Raymond Cottrell was wide receiver name that they got, who's really good. Uh, so I think that this could work out definitely. Now Ray Davis will go to the NFL, running back for Kentucky. Running backs are replaceable though. They might be able to find someone. So I'm pretty confident that Brock Vandagriff can do well. Is he going to win the SEC East? No, no, probably not. But I think he could do well. I think he could put himself in a position to, one, get that NIL money, right, and two, like he plays well enough, right, and he's got some traits that I think NFL teams would like a lot. I mean, he's not small, 6'3", about 215. I think he's a solid player, and like you said, I think that was a good get for Kentucky, and they got on him early. They knew that they wanted him, and they got on him early. So some good stuff there. So, any other thoughts on Brock Vandagriff?
No, I'm really excited for Kentucky there. Like you mentioned it all. I think it's good for them. No, for sure.
Yeah, and I was trying to look at the other transfers that they uh losing slash bringing in. Of course, Raymond Cottrell, who was highly rated high school recruit from Florida that A&M landed 6'2", 209. He's coming into Kentucky next year. He got some playing time there at A&M a little bit as a probably number 5, number 6 receiver. He's pretty good. Is Barry Brown coming back next year? I believe he
Sounds
is.
like it. He's got more eligibility and he's not
Yeah,
transferring.
he's on the portal. So as long as you have Barry Brown there and Raymond Cottrell, I think he could have some boys that he can throw to. So I mean, I'm excited about this. I'm not you know expecting this to be like Brock Vandagriff. Oh, he's in Heisman contention now. No, that was never the case. It's do not be betting your money to Brock Vandagriff to be winning the Heisman. Do not be doing that. Just if you want to donate money, there's plenty of charities out there. But this is a good quarterback. All Kentucky needs is an okay quarterback. We saw this past year, Devin Leary, they thought they were getting one thing and they got another thing. And Devin Leary did not play fantastic, but they won, what, 7 games? So,
I think so.
I mean, just get okay quarterback play. I think Brock Vandagriff can give you okay plus quarterback play, at least. We don't know
Do
what
you
the
think
ceiling on this guy is.
do you think he'll be better than Devin Leary?
Yes. Dude, he was not good this year at all. He's not good. And a lot of people will probably argue that he was good because they probably watched only 2 games. They probably watched the Kentucky game
Louisville?
that was on national television, and they watched the Louisville game. And those are the only 2 games all season where he was any good. So, and those were ironically nationally televised. So, if they saw the Alabama game, they might have seen the Alabama game. I think that was
I
like on
probably saw the
ESPN
Georgia
too.
game.
Yeah, I probably saw the Georgia game. Tough games for Devin Leary there. So, but I think this is an upgrade at quarterback. If you were to tell me that last year, I don't know if I would have said that. If you were asking me if Brock Vandagriff is better than now, Brock Vandagriff was competing still for the Georgia quarterback spot, even though on the show we were on Carson Beck very, very early. Uh, which by the way, not even top 10 in the Heisman voting, Carson Beck. It's crazy.
How's JJ? What are we doing there?
JJ
Regardless, though, this is
McCarthy
Brock
getting
Vandagriff.
this is Brock Vandagriff, but uh, yeah, he's a good player, and I'm excited for him. So
Real quick note, they do go they host Georgia week 2 next year, which will be fun for Brock to play against his old team.
that will be pretty cool. Let's talk about Tyler Shuck. Where's this guy headed? He is headed to the Louisville Cardinals with Jeff Brom. Uh, I think a lot of people, this is a polarizing transfer game because I think they thought that they were in the market for a better quarterback. I think a lot of people thought they were in the market for a better one. The reality is Tyler Shuck he's a really good quarterback. Granted, he's only ever played in 7 games in a full season, like twice, right? In only 7. He's never played more than 7 games in a season. But this dude has all the traits you want. He's 6'5", 225. He's been there. He's done that. He wins ball games. He's got a good arm. I think Jeff Brom will make it easy on him. I think they've got talent in that receiver room. I think they got talent on the team. It's going to be a tougher schedule for Louisville next year, for sure. I believe they get Florida State and they get Clemson and they get UNC. So that's a little bit tougher for sure. But I don't know, man. Because, like, here's the thing, though. If you bring in Tyler Shuck, you got to believe that this coaching staff believes also. Because, look, Tyler Shuck only has 1 year of eligibility left, right? Same with Jack Plummer. You got to believe that Jeff Brom believes that he has a younger quarterback that's ready to take the reins, but he just needs 1 more year, right? Is that going to be Harrison Bailey? Is
No,
You don't think so? Is it going to be Pierce Clarkson? Is it going
I
to be
think it's
Brady
Pierce
Allen?
Clarkson.
I don't know. I don't know who it is, but I would imagine that you bring in a guy like Tyler Shuck because you think you got a guy next year that you want to get playing time. And another, you want them to learn from another veteran as well.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I look at this. I think this is a good transfer get for Louisville. If you're asking me, you're asking me. But what do I know about things? What do I know about things?
they're bringing in, offensive tackle from Yale, or is that Yale? Yeah, that's Yale. And then also,
That was
um,
Thor Griffith, the defense tackle from Harvard.
then defense tackle from Harvard as well, which will help it with show, or at least the off tackle will. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like you mentioned that fans and whatnot, they probably wanted a more higher name quarterback, but when healthy, Shuck is really, really, really good. And we saw that with Texas Tech, he can run the ball well, which I like that a lot. Gives you a little different element that Jack Plummer had. Even though Brom doesn't really like to run his quarterbacks, and if you are concerned about his health, maybe you don't run him as much as you did, prior in his career. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I love him a lot though. I think this is a nice fit for Brom because when he's on the field, your floor is super, super high. And you know exactly what you're getting. He's seen every defense. He's a seventh year guy. He's 25 years old, very mature, not going to be
He's
going out
renting cars.
nightclubs, going to the bar. Yeah, exactly. And like he's going to learn the playbook. He's going to be there to be your quarterback. That is his professional job, is to be your quarterback. And he's going to be mature about it, which is really important. But we'll see. I was hearing them tied to some other quote unquote bigger names, um, which would have been super fun for Brom and staff there. I'm sure fans, but Shuck, make him if he plays 12 games next year, I feel really good about Louisville to hit their over, even with a tough schedule, right?
Really?
But if he's hurt, yeah, I think he's good. Like we
No,
were
I think
huge
he's
Tyler Shuck fans.
I think he's really good. Well, wait, the reason why his injury is the reason why Texas Tech couldn't do what they wanted to do this year.
Yeah,
Like it was dependent on Tyler Shuck being healthy.
which don't put all your eggs in one basket, which is weird, but we'll see if Brom takes another quarterback. That will be the tell about like how you feel about these young quarterbacks because like
Yeah,
you have to prepare for injury if you're Louisville because like it's gonna happen unfortunately, and you're gonna need two quarterbacks to play for Louisville.
yeah. I believe Jamari Thrash is out of eligibility, but Kevin Coleman is still there with eligibility, I believe. So I uh I still feel pretty good. Like you said about the Louisville roster, I feel good enough. So I'm not all in on Power Shuck for Louisville, but I think this is a solid get. I think he's a fine player. So we'll see how it works out. I think Jeff Brom can make any quarterback look really good, like he made Jack Plummer look for a couple weeks, and tricked everyone into thinking Jack Plummer was a really good quarterback. So uh, look, I'll trust Jeff Brom's evaluation. I'll trust Jeff Brom to get Tyler Shuck right. Just please, Tyler, stay healthy. Take some
Hmm.
vitamins, drink some milk, do what you gotta do. Uh, You're a lot of fun to watch, Tyler. So I'm excited for you. This is a good opportunity for sure, and a good opportunity for Louisville to win some ball games. Let's talk about Will Lee. If you don't know who this is a cornerback from Kansas State, one of the higher rated cornerbacks in the transfer portal. Made his commitment to Texas A&M. To be honest, I don't know if that's because of Colin Klein. I have no idea. or if it's just because A&M's two starting cornerbacks are in the transfer portal and the other one is a grad transfer from last year, and so he's graduating, and so A&M's cornerback room is uh as thin as it gets. So either way, this is a great get for A&M. I mean, you talk about a position of need. Talking about a really good player. I mean, what was he? He's probably like he's one of the highest graded defenders on Kansas State. I believe he's the highest graded secondary player in Kansas State and one of the highest graded secondary players in the entire Big 12. I think he'll fit right in. Like if Mike Elko wants him, then I'm all in. So, you have any thoughts on Willie?
Yeah, I think he fits Mike Elko, and I think you mentioned Colin Klein. I think Ishmael Aristide, right? The Aristide, I think I don't pronounce the name right. Like the new cornerback coach for A&M was a big deal for that. What he did with Chandler Rivers, Willie, I believe, man to man guy. Like he's really good about that. And I think Mike Elko runs man to man, right?
He runs a lot of that. Yeah.
Which is a great fit for that. I think it's part of it. Like if Colin Klein, familiarity on staff helps for Willie, but like I think it's a lot of different things, and I think it's a great fit for both sides here. You mentioned the need that A&M has at cornerback, with Chappelle and Harmon gone, and then Tony Grimes not working out, et cetera, et cetera.
I think Tony
This
Grimes
is
will
a
be
big,
healthy. He wasn't healthy this year, but I think Tony Grimes, I think he could be all right. But this will not be the last corner that A&M takes in the portal, by the way. But you didn't know that. Like there will be more to come.
but
But
this is a big time one.
yeah, no, it's a big time one. I mean, because if you don't have a guy like this, then you're relying on is Javon Thomas ready? We saw Sam McCall last year struggle a little bit. Uh, you're thinking is Bravion Rogers, is he ready to go? You know, is I think Dalton Brooks is moving, either to nickel or possibly linebacker. So it's like, do you move Jared Kerr to corner? Probably not. It's more of a nickel safety guy. I mean, you don't know. You don't have a lot of depth at corner. So this was a huge must get for A&M because there are a lot of players leaving A&M in the transfer portal, but say that they can't replace that talent in the transfer portal would be not exactly accurate. They can replace the secondary talent for sure in the portal. The defensive line talent, I don't know if they'll be able to replace all that, but they still got some guys there. But yeah, just I cannot emphasize how much of a gigantic need this was. Like in every game this year, the A&M's defense struggled. It was because they were trying to run man and they were just getting absolutely cooked, cooked. And then even like in games when they switched to zone, right? Like second half against Alabama, they ran more zone, versus man. And these corners were still getting cooked, except Chappelle. Chappelle was pretty solid, but Deuce Harmon came in because Josh DeBerry was just getting absolutely torched game after game after game, and he got a lot of playing time that he probably wouldn't have otherwise seen because Josh DeBerry got torched. But for whatever reason, I don't think Deuce Harmon's necessarily gone for sure. There's still a chance that Deuce Harmon is coming back. He's already expressed that. He said that, depending on what goes on and who offers him and what opportunities are out there, you might like it home in College Station. So Deuce Harmon's not necessarily gone for sure, but Chappelle, it sounds like he is for sure gone, which is a bummer because he was our best corner, and he has been for quite some time now. So that's tough.
I do think
But
does Willie, he has one more year of eligibility left, right? He came from JUCO and then he was at Kansas State for a year, right? And then
I don't know. He might have two, but I'm not sure.
maybe two to play one. I'm not too sure, but mention regardless, this is a big time get. I mean, Florida, LSU, USC, Auburn, Arkansas, Michigan State. Like everyone, a lot of people wanted him, and ended up kind of Washington was thrown in there as well. Louisville. He's really good. 6'3", like he's got the size. That's a you mentioned this huge get for A&M there. He fits in great. I think like he's gonna really enjoy his time at A&M.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just a good player. He's physical. He's long. I think he's a stud, man. So let's see. He enrolled into school, April of 2020. So this might be his last year. He's a
'Cause I
junior
think
this year.
he won't have that COVID year, and I think he
Yeah.
hasn't redshirted. So he has two to play one, if that makes sense.
Yep. So good ball player. So I wish him luck. I think he has a real opportunity to do a lot of good at A&M. Talk about everyone's favorite player ever, Grayson McCall. Oh yeah, an absolute slinger of the pill, Grayson McCall from the legendary days of Jamie Chadwell's offense at Coastal Carolina. Is officially in the transfer portal. He thought he was going to the transfer portal last year. He didn't. He stuck it out. Got hurt. Uh, I believe him and Jarrett Guest, I believe, are both in the transfer portal. So that just leaves Ethan Vasco there at Coastal Carolina. But Grayson
Dog.
McCall's dog. Grayson McCall's a dog, and so is Ethan Vasco. But Grayson McCall's a really good quarterback, very, very accomplished in his own right. And like, he's been tied to schools like NC State. He's been tied to schools like UCF. I believe he's visiting there this weekend. Um, I really think it's gonna come out of those two schools. But that's the kind of player that we're talking about. Like he's going from G5 to Power Five. Like he's a good football player. Uh, he's got some legs that he can use as well. He's got that athleticism. Um, I see him fitting better at UCF with the little Gus Malzahn offense there.
Mhm.
But I would be really interested to see him at NC State and with Robert and I think he could also thrive with Robert and I at NC State as well.
Yeah, I would also. It hasn't really been thrown around, but like sometimes things happen quickly. I really think that Auburn is an interesting play. I know when he entered last year in the portal. Well, first of all, every quarterback in the portal, wide receiver, has been tied to Auburn, and that's because of Hugh Freeze, right? We talked about it in some of our previous videos, but he was tied there last year, right? And Freeze is familiar with him. I don't know. I think he would fit really well with Hugh Freeze. I think if they strike out on some of those top quarterbacks, they can circle back to Grayson McCall. And it's not a knock on McCall at all. We are huge McCall fans. I think he's really good. Would love to see him go to UCF and play under Gus Malzahn. Robert and I at NC State. He will thrive wherever he's going at. He's played in a ton of games. He was lighting that Sun Belt on fire for the 3 years he was healthy there, or from 2020 to 2022. And then this year, he battled injuries. A new coach came in. It was tough for Coastal Carolina and company there. I think he gets his footing back wherever he ends up at.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. I will be, depending on where he goes, I will likely be buying shares of Grayson McCall in college fantasy football. So if you're a college fantasy football guy, uh, I'll probably be buying Grayson McCall. Now, again, it very much depends where he goes. But if it's UCF or NC State, I might be putting some chips in there, especially NC State. Casey Concepcion staying there. Huge for them. Huge. UCF's got a lot of talent there as well, and we know what quarterbacks can do in that system. And Grayson McCall is athletic enough to, really benefit from that system. So I think those fits. I think what's important too is like Grayson McCall, like seems like he understands fits too. Like these schools that are reaching out to him, like it feels like they're perfect fits, and the ones that he's visiting are perfect fits for his play style. So it sounds like he's a pretty smart guy and knows exactly what his skills are and who's going to bring the best out of him who's going to bring the best out of him. So I'm really, really excited to see where Grayson McCall goes.
Dude, I want to throw another one out there, and it's strictly because of coach fit, and I think it'll be super exciting to see him in this offense. How about San Diego State and Sean Lewis, right?
That's not crazy.
I,
Coast to
I'm
coast.
right, like it'd be a tough one, but he went out there to UCLA this year to play a game there. But well, yeah, I don't know, man. Sean Lewis in year one, he's a quarterback. McCall and him would do wonders there. Um, but yeah, I think you mentioned it. Like he understands his value and his fit, and like just because of the helmet and whatever, like it's contacting him. No, it's the coach and the coordinators, the receiving group around him. That's gonna help him maximize his college experience and then also, turning into on Sundays as well.
Yeah, I don't know how South Carolina has not reached out to him. I don't know how Virginia Tech hasn't reached out to him. Uh, maybe Virginia likes Calandry over there, but I don't know. I think okay, there's a lot of Kyron Drones truthers out there that are probably hating me right now, but I think
But
Grayson
calls an
Caldwell
upgrade
is
from that.
I think he's an upgrade. He's a little bit more proven than any of the quarterback options at any of those schools that I just listed. So um yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Can't wait to see where he goes. Good luck to Grayson. And good luck to Coastal Carolina and Ethan Basco fighting Chanticleers. And let's talk about Trey Moore. A lot of people's number one edge in this transfer portal class. Did you say 8 sacks last year, 14 sacks this past year? Very good on the edge. Now, what, 6'2, 250? He's put in his work in the CUSA, put in his work in the American. He's proven that he's very, very good. I think Texas is the clear leader to land Trey Moore in the portal. But I don't think he's the only player, though. But I personally like Trey Moore a lot as a player. We'll see how he fits. It feels like he's kind of more of a pass rush specialist. But again, I didn't watch all 12 UTSA games. So UTSA fans, I know this is going to hurt you guys a lot. I know you guys love Trey Moore. He's a very, very good player. I believe he was the American Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm correct on that. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this, CD?
Yep, he's a really, really good, talented player at UTSA. Obviously, doesn't it hurts? It really hurts. Losing on a guy like him. But yeah, I'm seeing Texas a lot. I think that's kind of where he's trending on going. Would be a great fit for him there. Obviously, familiar with the state and whatnot. He's a San Antonio native, but Austin is not too far away.
Oh,
Texas
it's
is
right.
obviously a
It's right there. It's right
yeah,
there.
and obviously big spotlight, and they've done a great job developing D line the past couple years. Yeah, and they could use a guy like him. I think their interior pressure was great this year, and they'll probably lose a couple of those guys in the NFL, but it's hard to find edge guys in the transfer portal, elite edge guys, and to get a guy like him on campus and on your roster is massive.
Yeah, I think he's really good. Of course, I think Texas fans would love to have Trey Moore. Um, we'll see though. I mean, the G5 to P5 jump is pretty big, especially in the SEC. But we've seen people make it before, plenty of times. So I think this is a good player. I think this would be a great get for Texas, mostly because we know how gigantic of a loss this is for UTSA. So, do you think there's any other schools that are players for Trey Moore right now, or do you think that's kind of? I kind of think it's just Texas right now. That's really like
I
all anyone's talking about.
Yeah, that's kind of all I can really come up with. I mean, I guess he could technically come back to UTSA. Be another part of it. If he visits Texas and it's like, it's not for me, I'm gonna stay at home here. Um, because I think he could technically go to the NFL. I don't know how, lucrative that is for him right now. I think, but yeah, I mean, I mentioned it. He was a baller, and it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. Sorry, UTSA. It's just what it is. But definitely good luck to Trey Moore. Very, very good football player. Excited to see where he ends up, or if he stays home. And if he stays home, I would congratulate on that too. Because I think he can do just as well and make just as big a name for himself in the NFL scouts by staying home in UTSA and dominating the American. So I'm uh I'm happy for him. I think he's got a real shot to make an impact wherever he goes. And that is it for episode 44 of the Redshirt Sophomore. Talked about coaching. We talked about transfer portal stuff. If you missed any coaches, well, we're gonna get to all the head coaches. Don't you worry. Right? Just we'll get there. We'll get there. If we missed any names in the transfer portal that you want us to talk about specifically, maybe your school landed someone. Do you want to? Is this a gem? Is this a good fit? Yada yada. We'd be happy. Right? Make sure you leave those requests in the comments, or If you're listening on Spotify, you can send an email to us at theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at theredshirtsoph. And of course, just another reminder, we got our college football bull pool going on. You can go to the description, follow that link. It's free. Can't emphasize enough that it's free. And you get a chance to win, a chance to be on the Redshirt Sophomore podcast. But in order to qualify, you got to be subscribed to our YouTube, right? It's very easy. Everyone's got an email. Everyone's got a YouTube account. If you're listening on Spotify, even, got to be subscribed. Sorry to our YouTube spot. But if you're listening on Spotify, we don't want to lose you. So be sure to give us a 5-star rating. Follow us. We'll still be posting all of our episodes on Spotify as well. But yeah, CD, you got anything?
Oh, you got it all. I thank you guys for listening. And just buckle down here. I know you're getting nervous here. Your team's losing players, your team's losing coaches. It's anxious time for everybody. Your coaches are, scrambling, putting the other staff together. It'll work out. Don't worry about it. Take a deep breath. Just enjoy it. Right? We got another week of all season stuff, and then we kick into bowl season. And that is awesome. And so cherish that. We got about a month left of college football actually on the field. And then, we get in the offseason for sure, which we love the offseason for sure.
Yeah,
But just cherish the
postseason.
rest of the football.
We say postseason, right? Because we're not in the offseason yet. We would like to clarify that there is college football to be played. Postseason, not
Yes.
offseason. And let's cherish the postseason. I second that. All right, guys, and we will see you in the next one.